All right. Sorry, it's just gonna keep going. And if you don't want to be shown on the recording, just take your camera off, change your name. If you don't mind, it's fine. Lynn is going to be monitoring the chat, so she'll be uplifting your questions, and I'll be fielding the questions from here. All right. How's everybody doing? I'm excited. Yo, this is the first time we've had that I put on a guest speaker in like 3 years. I was like, I should have brought that fake champagne without alcohol so we could celebrate. That'd be awesome. But we got pizza instead. So I hope you all get enough. Take what you need. I think this should be enough for everybody. And thank you for bringing cupcakes. Yeah, cupcakes are awesome. Is it getting warmer outside? Good. That's good. Yeah, sure. I know, right? I'm expecting snow like in a few weeks. You watch. Mark my words. I'm telling you. All right. I didn't realize I had my backpack on. How's the weather in San Francisco, Tongo?
It's decent.
Which means no snow, right? Like the other part of California. That floored me. Did y'all see that?
No snow.
Yeah.
No snow. No heat neither, but no snow.
Yeah, my friends were sending me pictures from Southern California, and I'm like, what? Crazy. And they say global warming doesn't exist, which is BS, right? Mm-hmm. I know. That's what I say. All right. Whew. Hey, class, we should take a group selfie and with Nick in it, right? Because these are first, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I didn't have time to even process until I was teaching that I was like, oh, we're bringing somebody in person. Hey, welcome. All right, English 102, way to represent. Oh my gosh, SGA in the house. Oh, SGA affiliated right here. That's awesome, y'all. Where are you going? Come back. We got pizza. Oh. What? Oh, for reals? All of it's gone? No, mija. Really? Was that like 4 boxes that? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to kick his butt. He really just brought, I told him to bring 4. You know what? He can bring more. Hold up. I said 4 boxes, run. I told you is this recording? Never mind. He's probably like way north now. No, he's not picking up. Hey, I told you to bring 4, not 2, dude. We ran out. Can you go get 2 more, please? No? All right, then I'm going to order some from Domino's. Well, he says, okay. Too late? Well, maybe I'll just go get some donuts across the street then. Bye. Thank you, though. 14 years of marriage, I swear. All right. Does y'all want donuts? Anybody want donuts? I'll pay you back. Just give me the receipt. Yeah, I will. We're being recorded. I'll pay you back. Well, they were very light because now they're gone. All right, let's start on a happy note. I think we can get started. My name is Dr. Jesus Estrada. Everybody calls me Jesus. And thank you, English 241, and everybody for coming. So like I was rambling about, this is the first time we've had a live event in 3 years. So it's super exciting. And we have Nick Sawyer. Did I get it right? What's your last name? Nicholas Thompson. Okay. So Nicholas and Tongo, who's been here before. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves before they speak. But we have just a phenomenal opportunity here because, oh man, I am sorry we ran out. But come in and grab a glass, grab some water. Come on in. I have a phenomenal opportunity. And today the topic is politics and poetry. We're at a really important time in Chicago with this opportunity with silence. With the opportunity we have now in Chicago. We have a contentious mayoral election. and also had some exciting victories that I think we can't really say who to vote for, but we can talk about the political scene and also the role that poetry and art plays in that. So anyway, we are going to have the fantastic Tongo speak first. Go ahead, brother, take it away.
Right on. Guided by teeth goes this country. There's a cow's mouth on the flag. A peculiar notepad holds street life dear, but the writer is not here. He's somewhere talking to tombstones about the good old days of splashing reborn water on his latest face, of wondering how his old gun is doing in the afterlife, wondering how much death trap is in those gas station aisles. It got to be $1 million a day on this concrete island. New engine in the moon, why it never goes down. I mean, 72 straight hours of night, at least according to everyone's posture around here. 8:30 in the morning is really 30 minutes of closing. The city shuts down for a sleepy rat race. Elevator shoe shuffle to the nearest heaven, laughing with rats the whole way up. There's scabs everywhere. In puddles of city and concentrated schools and TV-lit warm rooms, the light reveals military fatigue when it hits just right on the ties that are wrapped around the necks of lazy white guys. Empire is too easy, baby. Tear at the walls all summer if you feel like it. Best way for a target to move is shooting back, running for a tree line made of freeways. Wisdom says against a war machine on Tuesday, you stand no chance, but may we be the last poor people to play it safe. Cow's mouth on the flag, a politician raises his hand, and the crowd shows their teeth. An oligarch raises his hand. Little kids are not safe outside. You all high depressed and comrades and function. 15 minutes of closing in the city has survived another black rebellion. We just paying dues by trash fires, not just anybody can set. Like, don't you love how deadly things whisper in a moment and people kill like feathers fall while everybody's screaming inside? The writer knows that death is not a matter of dignity, rather humor. In the house, it smells like roach races, nuclear percentages on torn stoves. I mean, here life never was, just lazy matches and manic inhumanity, hands rushing away from life towards stoves. What we doing here? Surviving for no reason in particular, because nobody going far today, nobody go far tomorrow. Trust me, hell and heaven cannot count. Strange gardens where secondhand clothes play, and concrete wishes to be human so that it could be accountable. Where they find you drenched and drains wish to be human so that they could be worthy arms for you to die in. Hey, greet them all, grandson. Prepare for the day when every child is common. Don't say we ghosts didn't write you a poem. Don't say we didn't dig your life. Remember the shotgun by the correct that everybody in the house knows how to use. Remember the tightrope made of needles for walking in between driveways and man-made best friends. Go ahead, grandson. Tune the street again. Never mind, this country kills musicians first. Broken neck, night, scar neck life. If these walls could write lyrics, they say, what's your angle, angel eyes? 30, 50 rounds past, bound the street with no daughters. The street has no sons. Just young prisoners of war in a racist city that means to make capital, and we know so much. We know it all. We were stood against walls. Who's on the third cross around here? Cow's mouth, salivating over the street, and that is the story of why we aim at teeth. You know, a tour guide through your robbery, I also am. Cigarettes saying, look what I did about your silence. Ransom water and box spring gold. This decade is only for accent grooming, I guess. Ransom water and box spring gold. The corner store must die. War games, I guess. All these tongues rummage junk. The start of mass destruction begins and ends in restaurant bathrooms that some people use and other people clean. Hey, you telling me it's a rag in the sky? Waiting for you. Yes, we've written the scene. We set a stage. We should have fit in. Warehouse jobs are for communists, but now more corridor and hallway have walked into our lives. Now the whistling is less playful and the barbed wire overcrowded too. My dear, if it is not a city, it is a prison. If it has a prison, it is a prison, not a city. When the courtyard talks on behalf of military issue, all walks take place outside of the body. Dear life to your left, the medieval painting to your right. None of this really makes an impression. Crop people living in thin air, you have 5 minutes to learn how to see through this breeze. When the mask goes sideways, barbed wire becomes the floor, barbed wire becomes the roof, 40 feet into the sky becomes out of bounds. When the mask breaks in half, mile which way the eyes go. You know, they killed the world for the sake of giving everyone the same backstory. We watching Gary, Indiana fight itself into the sky. Old pennies for that wind feeling you get before the hood goes up and over your headache. Pennies that stick together, mocking all aspirations. I mean, stuck together pennies was the first newspaper I ever read, along with the storefront dwelling army that always lets us down, where the Holy Spirit favors the backroom souls in the situation to offer 100 ways to remain a loser. Souls watching the clock, hoping their eyes don't lie to sad people. What was we talking about again? The narrator asked the graveyard. Hey, 10 minutes flat, said the graveyard. The funeral only took 10 minutes, man. Never tell that to anyone again. You just gonna pin the 90s on me? All 30 years of them? Then why should I know the difference between sleep and satire? The pyramid of corner stores fell on our heads. We died right away. That building wants to climb up and jump off another building. These are downtown decisions. Somewhere on this planet, it's August 7th, and we running down the rust thinking one more needs to come with me, man. What evaporated on Earth so that we could be sent back down, man? I'm off to make a church bell out of a bank window. Kitchens, man, more to the masses back in the day. Before that, we had no enemy. You know, somewhere in America, the prison bus is running on time. You're going to want to lose that job before a revolution hits. Somewhere I won't be home for breakfast. Everyone out here now knows my name, and I won't be turned against for at least 4 months. The cop in the picking line is a hard-working rookie. The sign in my hands is getting more and more laughs. It said, the picking line got cops in it. And I could take care of those windows for you if you want, but someone else got to go inside your glass tank. It was clear to man that rich people had talked too much this year. And why don't you go ahead and throw down that marble park bench everyone's looking up at, get the Romans out of your mind. Maybe a good night's sleep would have changed the last 20 years of my life, playing the instruments like punching the wall. What would you have me do? Replace the population, give brotherhood back to the winter, stop smoking cigarettes with the barely dead. They listen in on the Sabbath. Police called the police on me. There was a white candlestick beneath my detention. I ruined the soup again. Thought the judge, as he took off his pilgrim robe behind the white people's door and more. I didn't get lucky. I got what was coming to me. He told, hey, fight me back, the man said. And of course, to himself, washing windows with a will to live, tin can on his left shoulder, enjoying the bright, brand new black with all party goers, both supernatural and supernaturally down there. What is this elevator? Traveling side to side? Like 1,000 bitter Polaroid pictures that you actually try to eat. All the furniture on this street nailed to the cement, cheap furniture, but we have commitment. Hey, this morning, an essay opens a conversation between enemies. Why? Because you control every grain of processed sugar between here and the poor man's border. Because in the tin can on my left shoulder, I can hear the engines of deindustrialization. Man, you should get into painting, tell lies more deeply. Now, this month, I'm rooting for the traitor. Carting cement to my pillow here, we will build. I'm high again, not talking much. Hey, why don't you climb up the organ pipe to our apartment floor? I'm high again, calling everything church, sing along to a courtyard, thanks to a horn player's holy pastime. I'm just putting a real jacket on it, talking about a real 5 years. Keep memories like these in the pocket next to the toll receipts. That man lost a wager with the God of good causes. Stood up for himself a little too late, maybe too early. I can still see 20 angles of his jaw zigzagging through the cold world of deindustrialization. There's an art to it. I will tell my closest friends one day, all street life to a certain extent starts fair, sometimes with a spiritual memory even. Pre-dawn soul clap, your father dying even. Maybe I've pushed the city too far. My sensitivities to landfill districting and minstrel whistles, white supremacist graffiti on westbound rail guards, all overcome and reauthored. Reauthored by revolutionary violence. It chose its own protagonist or muted stage of genius. The garbage is growing voices. Condensed Marxism for warrior depressives, underpasses in their pockets because they just might be deities, a decent bid on the Panther. A merciful Marxism, disquieted home life, a metaphor for relaxing next to a person who is relaxing next to a gun. I stare at my father for a few seconds, then return to my upbringing, return to the souls of Ohio Black folk, revolution. Down there pegging at this point, what the clown wants, the respect of the ant. Wants to interpret pain only, wants to pull a 38 out of a begging bowl, wants me to hurt my hand on this pen. I'm not tired of these rooms, just tired of the world to give them relativity. My only change of close prosecutor, the government finally learned how to write poems, shootouts that briefly align that make up a parable. A parable is like white bodies are paid well. Do white men even have leaders? Are all white people white men? A rat pitches a river. Can almost taste the racial divide. Can almost roll a family member's head into a city hall legislative chamber. Knows who in this good book will fly. All I do is practice, Lord. Decide not to talk out of anger ever again. Then my wife, at the same time, I met new audience members for our pain. We passed each other cigarettes and watched cops win. The city gone uniquely linear. Harlem of the West do a true universe. I will always remember you in fancy clothes, my wife said. So here I sit, twisting in silk ideation. Rifle made of post-bellum targets made of an honest language. This San Francisco poetry is how God knows it is me whining. riding among the lesser respected wolves, lesser observed militarization, Dixieland's prison bookie. I mean, the California Great Coast are coming. This mob gossip and bourgeois debt collection. It's tempting to change professions mid-poem. In the Chicago briefing, the white sergeant saying, blank slate for all of us after this black organizer is dead. Stand academics, hold some $2 wine at the tank parade. Bay of nothing, Lord, just nuclear cobblestones, gun line athleticism, the last of the inherited asthma, children giving white dogs to play with in fear, facial expressions borrowed from rich people's shoestrings. I can hear hate and teach hate and call tools by people names and name people dead to themselves. No one getting naturalized except federal agents soon, carving the equator in the throat soon. I'm sorry to make you relive all this, Lord, all this pre-dime monarchy friends putting up politician posters and snorting the remainder of the pace, mental script shoving it to the walls by their elders, my children sharpening their quarters on the city's ears. For these audiences, I project myself into a ghost-like state. For these gangsters, I do the same. Every now and then, take a nervous look east. Sleep becomes Christ. Sleep starts growing a racial identity. Do you ever spiral, Lord? Has the gang age betrayed us? Be patient with my poems, Lord. There's so much pain to support the crime. I mean, it has to be a race traitors come with it. Lord, is that my revolver in your hand? You know, better presence than these of you on the cages have called us holy slaves, filled the school libraries with cop documentaries. Baby, I don't have money for food. Why I have no present moment at all. I go to the railroad tracks and follow them to the station of my enemies. A cobalt-toothed man pitches pennies at my mugshot negative all over the United States. There are Tyler's in the rock. I see why everyone out here got in a big cosmic basket and why blood agreements mean a lot and why I get shot back at. I understand the psycho-spiritual refusal to write white history and take the glass freeway. White skin tattooed on my right forearm, ricochet sewage near where I collapsed into a rat-infested manhood. My new existence is living graffiti in the kitchen with a lot of gun cylinders to hack up. House of God in part, no cops in part. My body brings down to Christmas. The new bullets pray over blankets made from the old bullets. Pray over the 28th hour's next beauty mark. Extrajudicial Confederate statue restoration. The waistband before the next protest poster. Hey, by the way, time is not an illusion, Your Honor. I will save your deaths for last. You are witty, Your Honor. You're moving money again, Your Honor. It's only raining one thing. Non-white cops and prison guard shadows reminded me of spoiled milk floating on an oil spill. Neighborhood making a lot of fuss over his demise. A new lake for a Black Panther party. Malcolm X's ballroom jacket slung over my son's shoulder, the figment of village. A new noose to a new white preacher, all in an abstract painting of a president. Bought slavery some time, didn't it? The tantric screeches of military bolts and election Tuesday cars. A cold-blooded study in leg irons, proof that some white people have actually fondled nooses. Their sundown couples made their vows of love over opaque piece plastic and boat action audiences. The mega every second, definitely my favorite law of science. Final news clippings and primitive Methodists, my arm changes imperialisms, simple policing versus structural frenzies, elementary school script versus even wider white spectrums, artless bleeding, and the challenge of watching civilians think at terrible rituals they have around the corner. They let their elders beg for public mercy. I'm gonna go ahead and sharpen these kids' heads in the arrows myself and see how much gravy spills out of family crest. Modern fans of war with their t-shirt poems and t-shirt guilt and me having on the cheapest pair of shoes on the bus. I have no choice but to read the city walls for signs of my life. These little societies, they wander together like hopeful drops of a virus. Citizen testaments bent on offering me a nation of breadwinners to hold me back like it's a Brinks. I wrinkle the concrete sometimes like flesh. My Martin Luther King permanence. Turned away from a podium into the reeds like God is a dangerous twin. Black August to the mountaintop balcony on my bedroom floor. You know, they steal you from the earth itself and suspend you in your broken neck from their foolish euphoria, from the loyalty off of their gray superstition, loyalty off of their agrarian reform. Man, I returned to my mother completely disrespected. For peeling the heat off of purgatory, they kill poets like me, walked me away from my poems, never to be heard from again. In this final industrial complex of bloodlines picked over, picked through, sport and spiritual death, or you're a devil, at least half-made police, become a pretty word. I'm reading a lynch mob shoestrings like they were tea leaves, teaching you how to write about cities, man. It's the 25th century in the mirror, people. Tyranny against your chump change, you're a chump to be mocked even with a gun in your car. Cubit of needlework spelled tuned for the proletariat, the relapse ministry. Talented people curled up in a fetal position next to a diamond, dying. Just another service day in the theatrics of tea house fascism. in a bouquet of surveillance cameras, in the poverty of God, new blue eyes, corpses of water, a newly potted presidency, one big shiny coin if you ask animated capitalism, another non-literal voice killing his wife freedom, the deification of hyphens, medicine bread and picture shows, great protesters in LA, guests of our ink, drop kicking rose in the graveyard. I made DC make like a stone torn in half the pen advances, despite CIA guideposts, despite non-African past and futures, a metaphorical but not surreal day in the horn-ridden life, horn player improvising king, like a radio prize fight featuring Shango himself, a real hand sweeps the land of racism. May I return to the ground? May I make progress with the gun? On our mother Emmanuel, they put on music that evening. A swinging tight body language for you to drink with fermented $5 bills. For your body language, some applause. My past stomach lining, neither a good thing nor a bad thing, like being psychic on the way to a lethal injection. And to sit you down with Lady Day leading you to surrender their souls to Africa too soon. Probably thought floating in the cup of water she saved me, accessing my stomach, accessing the love of the American lynch. Post sleeves, wooden avalanche to the wrist. Our mother Emmanuel, avalanche to the shock. I mean, pain. The deal you make with pain. A piano makes sense for them. Laying hands on the world gradually. Addressing the bended necks on the streets of the north. Travelers sailing in pain, repeating pain in the north. 10 trigger fingers on that piano if harmony would have me. Putting 100 fights on every direction over the Lady Day. Leaning on trees again. Recruiting the countryside itself. Saying, lay your plan on this lightning. Make your pawns a corner pocket of men. I greeted the blues itself. America may clean my dead body, but will never include me. There goes the poet. Killing without killing. Never mind this little painting of your language. May I be a meaningful lynching. A crow's passing. Good and dead by the afternoon. I'll leave it there.
So Tongo did not introduce himself, but Tongo is the 8th San Francisco Poet Laureate. This is the 4th time Tongo coming to the Harold Washington family. I think what you're not seeing are the 30 or so people in the audience that are giving you lots of love, and people in the chat, feel free to ask questions. Beautiful. You know, I'm going to make you perform the one that I love the most, but not right now, because up next, we are incredibly privileged and honored to have Nick with us today, who is from Chicago, and it's going to tell you a little bit more about himself. And more pizza is coming, y'all. My husband's going to redeem himself, so give it 20 more minutes. Here you go, son.
Thank you. I'll be brief in my introduction, but I am a member and organizer with the Black Alliance for Peace, which is an anti-war, anti-imperialist organization. And as a poet, I feel the work of the organizer, the cultural worker, should be deeply immersed in the political life. So I'm gonna share some pieces and looking forward to the stimulating discussion. That brother was powerful. This first one is called Meditations on So-Called Allies. If you would call yourself an ally, don't. It is my hope I don't offend, but I unnerve, unsettle, and make you uncomfortable. There has been a mass movement of house Negroes, Uncle Tom sellouts, and an increasing rise in cowardice. The so-called liberal and progressive is complacent in the case, so is complicit and culpable as a result of their inaction. Claiming the chaos is Russia or China, no mentioning of a democracy in the marketplace, the issue Pelosi, McConnell, they play us like Boo Boo the Fool, while the ornate activism, performative allyship, alienating alliances, upholds agendas, leaving a revolution in dire straits, which most of us was born in. No choice in it, but I sense sedition afoot, plagued by division of indifference and class reduction. The only answer is abolition. You can't improve the conditions of the slave, so be weary of the hand that feeds you, but hesitates to free you. We free ourselves. Fleeing prophetic voices, echoes to prosperity gospels, these sellouts sell you dreams and bridges you can't cross and never provided you the tools to build, never had no boots for the bootstraps, never no personal responsibility for the corporate crackers, concrete ceilings, attitudes, and barriers impede every step. Yet they condemn, they claim the individual for the warming planet. They indict you for the pre-existing issues you were summoned here with, never decrying the system set up or the avarice, the cupidity and chicanery. Fate is already cruel enough. Why does humanity or their lack of work overtime? The colonizer in cahoots with the capitalists wishing to exploit your labor and poison your thoughts, motivated by imperial aims. What is freedom? Slave-based economies, avatars of chaos, cosmic telling, searching for the culprit of our agony, an increase in instability and stagnating wages, destitute futures, a broken moral compass leaves us adrift, functions not flaws of an apocalyptic mode. Coercive law of competition and exploited peoples, forsaken generations. What do we leave behind? These rape cultures, missing Black women, mourning trans and non-binary people, disregarding humanity once again. What courage it takes to be yourself, connecting, over captivity, our shared suffering, the impending doom of existence, harmonies heard in our cries for freedom, still cast away in silos. Would you be a witness to the destruction of the human soul? I've died many times, observed myself in countless tragedies, so I scream louder with the power, seeking liberation. The land should be first, the wretched of the earth. What are you doing for the least of these, the forsaken, the forgotten, those fleeced by false flags of freedom, the downtrodden? If you would call yourself an ally, don't. We need accomplices and collaborators like John Brown. If you would call yourself an ally, don't. We need accessories and abettors to our conspiracy. If you would call yourself an ally, don't. We need race traitors and class traitors prepared for every front of struggle. Ain't no freedom for a pacifist. If you would call yourself an ally, don't. Pick up your weapon, be it a pen, rifle, or wallet, put down any illusion of the situation, show up and show me what you're really about. This piece is called Love, Liberation. Love, liberation, embrace, veneration. I'm after abolition, wages, classes, and the prison. Worker from a peasant, can you tell me what's the difference? For the autonomous, freely liberated, cognizant to pit the people piling in is bottomless. They pit the people against one another over providence and documents to maintain a dominance. Took away our commons and they took away our common sense and empty out our pockets for their products till we out of sense. Trying to buy some happiness, another day, another dollar short. It didn't fill the void. Tell me what you bought it for. Groom to consume to the tune, sell us dreams that's American. Before all the immigrants, we ain't had the room. Say we got some terrorists, but they always been among us. They wearing white hoods and they hung us. Now they got badges in Congress. They calling me the notorious Negro agitator, rabble, rancateurs. I can suffer with these unwitting collaborators, colonizers, terror more. Death wishes, shooting stars while the terror forms, supernova, dying cosmos as the planet warms to a cold decorum. And this is called on. They say to love them when they do us harm. I'm never proud to be a privilege of American, refuse to bask in luxuries and suffering of other men when opulence and counterfeit and stolen from the motherland. Ain't been home in centuries, but greeted me as African. Locals told me, welcome home. We glad to see you back again. I'm in West Africa, Liberia. We discussing politics for the climate much better for my melanin and sinuses. I'm eating topic cassava leaves, low key, remind me of my daddy collard greens. RIP. Stomach full, belly laughs, kicking back, feeling closer to my roots and my family tree. Can I pause for a moment? Is this free? I ain't seen a settler colonizer in some weeks, but I'm pondering and plundering other continents, other contents of the continent that's severing, centuries of pillaging. People minerals as a hobby. They overthrew Nkrumah, then they overthrew Gaddafi. Now look at Libya and look at Mali, down in the Ivory Coast. They're getting robbed for their cocoa. They're getting used for his cobalt. The villages they're locking in the water and got no roads. So we protest in the U.S. when you see us looting. We taking back what you stole though. The rich is never enriching the people. Only overseas of the pocket overseers and they dare to call this freedom. Like, yeah, y'all starving, but you can vote. While the natural, your land and your labor feed the globe, the anti-blackness so unusual, my people are streaming something beautiful. We really get the money together back at home. Collective liberation is a movement. Everything is love. Everything can move. It seems to be going. I'm telling people we got to stop paying debt to the rest till our people fed and the unity formed and all restored in every African is free from people because we way past Black Lives Matter. We screaming Black liberation shut down African right after because they flooding the communities with drugs and the hell and going to the continent and pillage all the wealth, locking the development that they're you in the cell, the suffering connected. We bonding over bondage by how we start to heal, beginning with the unity and clarity that I ain't free to everybody free. This is a love letter to revolutionaries, rebels, radicals, renegades, rabble-rousers, and rancateurs towards a vision of a future struggling to be born. Humanity will stop for no man's privilege. I'm early morning reading hood communists and drinking matcha on the porch, on looking the community garden where children play safely. Meals decorated in liberatory illustrations, the catchphrase is everyone always, from each according to ability to each according to need. Down with imperialism, a Black Alliance for Peace. I pull up to the district assembly discussing city allocations and the preservation of the trees. Everybody's heard and everybody speaks. Onward, ever, backward, never. We delivering groceries to the senior co-op. I receive a round of chest with elders picking up game and some recipes. They shared with me that revolution was not an end goal, but a process, but in motion and always becoming. The struggle continues. Child care is collective. A well-being for all was a platform. Pigs wasn't welcome on the block. Safety was bonds with each other. I'm at the community center volunteering time, pondering the fury with the Stoics, wondering the world in which Malcolm lived to see Burkina Faso under Sankara. I'm prepping my notes for the book club tonight. It's blood in my eye, hoping to do George Jackson justice. I'm strolling through the neighborhood, stopping on a corner cooperative in a hoodie and a do-rag. This is a spot where we plan to cool at, conniving with a couple convicts turned comrade. I'm checking in on my folks walking down the street with the people in control. No cop cars on patrol because we quicker to a vote than to vote, and they know that. Black and brown babies no more in blues, journey the grace and mint and amusement, riding bikes, flexing and frolicking, hooping. Ain't no active shooters, only active imaginations. Take them on an adventure, prepping for the next stage of life, unbothered, blaring boisterous music, playing the dove and sleeping serenely if they want to. Praising the gospel, ghetto or otherwise, eating rainbows and sipping dollar sweet teas, not playing with pistols. This ain't even a utopia, but we got sense enough to know life can't be refunded. I walk in a classroom where I mentor today teens, meditating, hearing the history of the indigenous inmate and the immigrant, practicing conflict resolution. They got options for electives like cultivation, world building, writing people's constitutions, hearing voices, seeing visions toward a transformed future. History don't repeat, but it rhymes, and the rhythm hinders movement, but a people chorus sings, why do you on the moon again? Why do you on the moon again? And we sent them there on a one-way flight. Do not return the sender. The revolution wasn't televised, it was streamlined and made a TikTok challenge. Overthrow your boss today, form an organization or a party, and dance for freedom jig and two-step to liberation. Protest the progressive only seeking healthcare. Tell them they way too passive. I'm sorry, but my people keep weapons and they need action. We not kneeling with no enemies, no infatuation with violence, but our emancipation and sovereignty inseparable from it. First day after victory, we secured the bread for the masses. We acknowledged the land by returning it to the stewards and found equity when we emptied the penitentiaries. We slid on the ruling class, took the power from the sliding scale. Strikes had us thinking of the worker and not drones. I organized the revolution tomorrow, but I prepared to work without ever seeing the fruits of my labor because this is for posterity. Leo Navi Zaire, my children, the struggle wasn't born in a vacuum, and ideas do not fall from the sky. The social context got us here. We put an intercultural wars and warming planet, stolen wages, increasing panic. We built to our mutual aid and dual power. No one being can write all of humanity. That's the people's post. The capital was a catapult. Wasn't no more foundations built on the backs of the exploited. No philanthropy or charities. We redistributed the needs from the source. Relation to the property was made obsolete. We in the moment, post-revolution, where I can practice veganism and pacifism and peace, where the social conditions can allow for free association, forming unions with assorted daughters and sons of Malcolm and the free children, free children. Democracy died with the price tags and war and prison-based economies. No more millions in the suffering. White supremacists and fascists choke them out with their white hoods and bootstraps. That this is too graphic a philic illustration of a world emerging. You ain't built for this. The violence the slave applies contrary from the slave master. I saw self-determination in the front of that police building. Ironic as a community kitchen and warming center now. Communing with my ancestors wanted to commute to late stage intercommunalism, learning anti-colonial struggles and nation building from the continent and resistance and resilience from the Caribbean. No more praise for heavy procurements. Society and socialized production, built people sending human rights from struggle. It counted to the myth of enlightenment, a world where everything produced ethically, and the community provided no necessity, whether in the working class, slave, or peasantry. It was theory to practice, require strategy and tactics. We have no luxury of time for academic disputes or battering tendencies or Western chauvinism. Our victory is synonymous with unity. I pen this love letters to revolutionaries, rebels, radicales, renegades, rabble robbers, and renegatours. The struggle is ours, and the world is dying to be born. What you gonna do? So depending on time, I have one more piece, or we can just go straight into conversation. I have. You notice that? Yeah.
Can I
don't want to get nobody in trouble. That's not my MO.
can I get on? I have a question for Tongo.
Okay, yeah, let's do a quick question, maybe just
Or am I not allowed to ask questions? I have a question for Tongo. My name is Antonio.
Mike. Hold up. What's your question, Antonio?
All right, I wanted to get the video on, but I didn't. My question is, I just wrote down, and this is a collaborative effort from Deeper and Higher. How have you shaped your political actions to empower and let the victims of those who oppose us by so many of these imposters who chain up and are led to do whatever they want to do? The political action part is what I'm focusing on. So what are we doing to combat that, basically?
All right. That's an excellent question, and you're welcome to answer it too, Nick. Tongo brother, you're muted.
I didn't exactly understand the question. How do y'all understand the question?
Hold on here. Hold up, Nick. Sorry.
I don't want to speak for the brother, but I think if I understood the question, it was, how does the work that you do shape the political action in which you engage in, and how has that formed, and how do we respond to kind of the conditions that we have found ourselves in? So,
Oh, right on. I think that really in a way, our historical task is very, I mean, is formed by the conditions itself, and therefore we do well as far as political practice to to learn the rule, not the rules, but the kind of the realities of organizing on its own terms without me placing myself in the center of it, doing right by kind of everyone's to-do list, and then, and then being appropriate from there.
All right, Nick, do you want to take a shot at this one? Sure.
me and Tom go in the same political formation, so we're gonna have similar answers, but I'm gonna answer it a different way. And I think very much to what he said, our social conditions, our political conditions, these circumstances are going to shape and influence the art that we make and in the ways in which we engage in struggle. And I'll give you an example. There's a comrade in our organization. We were having a good conversation on our past conference, and we were talking about different forms of struggle and when to escalate struggle. And he was a former Panther, and he was just sharing all the things he had engaged in. And I won't get details, but he was like, "Yeah, we shot at the police," and I was like, "Okay." He was like, "But that's not where we're at yet." He's like, "You know, we're near that. I would never ask you to do that." And he asked me that, and he told me that. So I think if I understand the question correctly, like the struggle you find yourself in should shape the ways in which you engage with it and the tools at your disposal. I think every tool should always be on the table, but you should be intelligent and not on an adventure to get your people free. Because if you're really about a collective, you're really about unity and other people's safety, you need to engage in a way that keeps people safe while still struggling towards liberation.
Do you want to hear one more piece from Nick? We have the new people that didn't hear the earlier said. Nick, why don't you do one more piece, and then we'll dig into this. And Anthony, I believe that was an excellent question. And then I'm gonna have you do my favorite poem, right, Tongo? Oh, wrong way. You know the one I love. Blood in my eye. Get ready, Tongo. Get ready.
All right. This one is titled, "We Call This Progress." We've succumbed to the madness, neurons firing neurotic habits, nerves, and obsessions. We become numb to everyday functions, fictions, ritualistic behaviors, and addictions become habitual silently. Such behavior is counterproductive. Our culture rapid wit, but yet depends upon the depravity, the lavish, and the glam. Market, no one shares, depreciates, and fluctuates, and Apple shares down, and absolute famine brought about. All-time lowest community, and our apples don't fall far from the trees. An apple a day leaves you broke and monitored. Competition has us throats, scraping for the bottom barrel, have put us in peril, fighting for mediocrity, while the haves laugh at the have-nots mockingly. Competition quantifies our net worth, but never gratify our hunger for material. Product obsolescence is a reoccurring theme. Everyone unknowingly living well above their means, adverse inadvertently has us purchasing with our soul as a commodity. And the feeling of unfulfillingness you feel in the depths of your being continues to grow, devoid of the happiness, devoid of purposes. The American weight, global scene is under siege in the wake of a purge, the bends in the will of others whom were clean until you tainted them and painted them other. Or you model minorities, you place them on display. This is how and what you want to be, conjuring all public insecurities. The cause is colonial. A master-slave relationship is the causality, not a result of racism. So we buy into their schemes. We abide by and by their roles they chose. Our lives are so fragile and momentary. We wage.
Like their knuckles.
Wouldn't it make more sense to have a little bit more love than this, to make this fleeting dream enjoyable and pleasant for everyone? We chart the accomplishments of the many and attribute it to the few and claim to be a forward-moving species. For the moment, merely deter recession. The fools go to progression. We've merely complicated the processed foods, voting, clothing, and any means of distribution. Even protests and revolutions have become a process that never complete. Revolution will not be sudden, chaotic, unorganized, and unsystematic in a flesh of light. It's organized. But when we come together, crashing down and crumbling the backs of the poor, finally giving out under the weight and greed of multinational corporations, weary from the battles they waged on themselves, running in a fabricated race that never ends, imaginary struggles for dominance, we're headed towards extinction, full force ahead, set our destination to devastation. We call this progress.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we can actually take questions both from the Zoom, and if you don't want to show your face, that's fine. We can give you the mic.
I'm not able, they're not letting me show my face. But if you keep banging your head up against the brick wall, thinking that the brick wall is gonna break first, keep doing it. Go ahead, protagonist.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead.
How everybody doing? First of all, gentlemen who spit y'all pieces, y'all did an amazing job. My question is for young artists who are inspiring to write poetry and be on platforms like this. What would you say? How would a poet dive into it, or what inspires you guys?
So they can see your face. Yeah, I know you got a face.
I got a bad back. So the first way I'd answer that question is like generally what I always tell folks, and that is to be immersed in struggle in an organization. I think it's imperatively important to be a part of a collective doing work in the things that, you know, align with our passions, align with our ideas of human. I can sit down, that's crazy. Okay. And align with our passions and our values, right? So, you know, I joined a Black radical anti-war, anti-imperialist human rights organization. You know, actually I'm repping, we gang. So look, the Black Alliance for Peace. And I did that, and like my members shaped me, the work shapes me, the struggle shapes me. Amiri Baraka, if people are familiar with him and his work, you know, a powerful poet, Black nationalist, and, you know, just a prolific writer. He says, I might butcher the quote, but he says the role of the artist to raise the consciousness of the masses, to tell them about the everyday life, and to kind of demystify the lies and propaganda that's been fed to them. As an artist, that's what you should be doing. If you're not doing that, I don't know why you do it. And that's really what I believe. And I don't think art is neutral. So that's the premise, right? So some people say, we just make art to make art. That's not true. It's a class struggle. Class struggle exists whether people want to admit it or not. So then the art is produced by that class struggle. It's going to be informed. The Marvel movies, we have contracts with the DOD. That is not by accident. They are doing that on purpose. That is not just by happenstance. So our media, not just, you know, the written or the visual, in my honest estimation, is never neutral. It's always has an objection, and it's always has a class kind of like informed struggle. So if I'm going to be in class struggle, I'm probably going to be on the team that is my team, and that is working class, 12 people in the globe. So then my art has to be shaped by that. That starts with organization, that starts with struggle, and being, you know, immersed and informed too. So reading a lot, making sure we know, you know, the conditions of our own community, but also elsewhere. That's it.
Tongo, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I do have to second everything Nick said. I would just add, you know, just there's you know, when it comes to really any kind of craft, there's this temptation to look at it as far as what I can accomplish in some amount of time. But really, you know, the journey is really a journey towards your voice, craft wise, right? So that the way you put things, only you are, you know, we know it's you when we hear the line. And that really just comes from, you know, 1,000 pages, 2,000 pages, 10,000 pages, man, just writing and writing. I found it most helpful to just put a timer on daily for 2 hours and just see what happens. You know, also, you know, I think similarly, you know, when it comes to a revolutionary practice. It's also like, almost like the journey to embodiment. That we always, the elders always instill in us, like, you might not see it in your lifetime. So then, but what can we see? We can see ourselves, really truly having dissolved our quest for personal gain of personal territory, and instead taking on the territory of all. So it's just really like, man, almost like this life thing in general just comes down to how well or how selfless you walk your path. In a third kind of thread that we do, that does right by us, if we do right by it, is some kind of process of internal cultivation too, something that kind of really anything that, makes yourself more kind of like open, puts more space in your mind, relaxes you, makes you at least gentle with yourself. That also goes a long way. But the idea is really to, like, just abandon the fruition or abandon the thought of a completion or the accomplishment, and just learn how to do right really by this human thing, moment to moment.
And Tongo, you also meditate a lot. I don't know if you can speak to that practice. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, man. I do. I do. I do. And it's funny, it started when I had this job teaching in this alternative school. It was like the last stop. I mean, like, we had folks coming from the other alternative schools in San Francisco. And so I kind of really, my whole approach to the gig was like, if a kid fall through the cracks here, it's not going to be because I wasn't on point, or I wasn't prepared. So I really, threw myself into it. Like, man, everything daily became like a matter of teaching. Like, I was just on a perpetual hunt for material, stuff I thought would be relevant, that stuff that would spark minds, material. I was just always thinking about what to teach and how to teach it. But every day was like an emotional roller coaster, because you can imagine, folks is coming in after not being in school for a long time or having problems in all of the schools. So, we were kind of improvising culture as we were going along, trying to figure out, the best way to build a decent unity in there. And it was just like, but it was just like a headache, man. It didn't matter how well I prepared or how good the material was or whatever, or how charismatic I was that day. Like, there was going to be a roller coaster. And so, I just got lucky. I stumbled into the thought. I recalled a book somebody gave me a while ago called Peace in Every Step by this cat named Thich Nhat Hanh. And it was real simple, damn near secular, not even putting it on too thick, just talking about mindful breathing and mindful moving. So I just, like, like 7 minutes every day before I went in, I would do this meditation, and I'll be damned if it didn't change the whole day for me, because then you get to see, like, okay, it's not actually what's going on, it's the way I'm relating to it. That is the that is the storm, and so I got, that was the beginning, and ever since it's been a tool that I rely heavily on, man, when when things, because the more you get down, the more competent you are, the more people saddle you with tasks, and the more this movement thing, oh my God, it's like, you pay for the extra mile you don't go. Every extra mile you don't go, you actually pay for it. So we do well. We do wise to really overextend and almost, just overwork. And the only way to kind of sustain to sustain the necessary diligence is through keeping myself as as kind of open and clear as possible. That job was also an interesting springboard too, in that was that was the job that propelled me really to take the gloves off and be a 24/7 organizer. And that, also what was going on, like the kids in that school were really they was the eye of the hurricane, like anytime somebody made the news, it was one of them or one of the people, every time there was I'll put it like this. If you looked on World Star Hip Hop, you know what I mean? From 2009 to 2012, anytime San Francisco was on there, that was one of mine, or one of or one of theirs. And so it kind of pushed me into this space. On the flip side, right, I had like complete control, complete autonomy of curriculum, how we got down, but the system itself, the school itself would still like would kind of this long story doesn't need to be that long, but I'll just put it like this. The school itself kept oppressing them and kept basically taking my work and using it to undermine us all. And so I was just like, so I'm just like, man, one, this institution is moving beyond what I think is right and wrong. And two, no matter how solid a moment I can put together here, I can't protect these kids the other, 20 hours of the day that I don't see them. And the other 20 hours of this day is just like, is annihilating them, sometimes literally, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was like, man, what, so I have to start engaging in struggle outside of systems, or be part of collective, be part of organizations that move appropriately to the real, to the reality that what's good for the oppressor is always bad for the oppressed,
Anybody else? Oh, thank you. You're getting lots of what do you call it? Snaps. Anybody in the chat, you can chat your question. I'll ask it for you, or if you want to unmic or unmute and ask a question, you're welcome to. Since the focus is really poetry and politics, and you heard a lot of beautiful, I think one of the questions I grapple with still as a writer, and I think my students as more seasoned and beginning writers, how do you balance the political with your art? And I know Nick said the art is not neutral, which I think is right on, but Nick, you want to start with this one?
So for a long time, I think I would write pieces that was always inherently representing what I was experiencing, which was just happened to be political. And it's difficult because I no longer divorce the idea of the organizer and the cultural worker. They should be immersed in some capacity. So I think in terms of your question, like struggling with being a writer and being political, I would say find ways to interweave them so that it's natural to you. Some people are allegorical and it's not always apparent, and that's the way they engage with struggle. And some people are just like incredibly like overt with what they're saying, and I think it's just like to what Tongo spoke to earlier, developing that voice. So I tell folks, like, develop the voice, find out like what you can give at your capacity. And like I say this a lot, but like from each according to ability to each according to need, what can you give to the struggle? Some people give $1, some people give 100, but it doesn't matter. Just give what you can at your own capacity. So if you're gonna be a poet, a writer, a filmmaker, a painter, like do that work and find out how to interweave it with the struggle. And that's my honest estimation of the correct way to live and to be artists, because we have so much power and influence in what we do. The media is very powerful, just of propaganda or liberation, and what do we want to be a part of, right? You either freeing people or you capturing. That's how I see it like that. So are we going to be freeing people with them, or are we going to capture them to like the already pre-existing mode, the hegemonic forces? I want to be counter-hegemonic to like the current things that I'm doing. So to finally answer the question is just like find the space what's comfortable, and don't try to be overtly political if that's not your bag. Maybe take the allegorical approach, right? be a little bit more subtle with it, clandestine, but still have those political elements and engage in struggle, because people are going to look at your work anyway and make assumptions, right? Like, what was the film? I think it was called Parasite. People were like, "This is a great film," and folks were talking about it on the Twitter, and they was like, "Oh, this is not a film about capitalism." Yes, it was. And the documentary came out, I was like, "Yeah, it was." So, like, if you don't want to be overt, like, maybe do, I won't say more intelligently, but I'll say more clandestinely do work like that. Like, there's ways to still do it if you don't want to be the person that's boisterous and loud and saying death to the United States or whatever. I don't, just find your way.
In fact, we just watched that movie in English 102. It was a delight because a lot of my students hadn't seen it. So getting the reactions was pretty dope. Tongo, do you want to take this question?
Yeah, again, it's just get used to going the extra mile, and then and also, work on practices. For me, it's meditation, but whatever takes the edge off of this kind of extra work. But I point out too, I asked this same question to Emory Douglas, who was, responsible for all of the artwork for the Black Panther Party. I was like, how, and what he told me was that, it's built into, it needs to be, your productivity as an artist needs to be built into the organization. And he just described just how, like what I didn't know, or didn't know how widespread, but Panthers actually live together. I mean, so just to work in such a kind of like a complete and intimate way, it gave the comrades could then kind of like pick up the necessary slack or ease the task of Emory, so that he could do both. So it's also like a collective thing, and it's also on the on the art side too. Moving with collectives is also good. Like out here in the Bay, we have this writing group called the Patrice Lumumba writing group. It operates out of Oakland, and it's really it kind of it's been it's beautifully energizing when especially like a craft like writing, it's kind of has a built-in hermitage. You're like the tendency you can it's easy to just go by yourself, to be by yourself with it. But we take leaps and bounds when we're working with others and bouncing off of others and responding to what other people are doing on the page, and that's also where you can get energy from. But it's just like I think one other thing that kind of what's been helpful is when you jump on this little movement path, right? It's like it's a path typified by integration of yourself. So as we move through like a capitalist society, we're always encouraged to live compartmentalized. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this is me doing what I want to do. This is me doing what I have to do. This is me doing what I'm good at. This is, you know what I mean? And we just kind of, we almost like, it's almost a multiple personality situation that is encouraged. So when one of the concepts, like, he said, well, I'm a revolutionary, is really just to say, no, I'm one human being, and I shouldn't have to live compartmentalized. I shouldn't have to assume different mentalities and different mind states in order to navigate these different these different aspects of life, or aspects of the world, when all aspects need to be on one accord, or all aspects need to do one thing: protect and nurture my humanity, right? So it's like, it's very much what's draining is when we live that kind of work play paradigm.
Mhm.
And you'll find more energy you know, like in a way that this kind of movement things gives you more energy, because for me, there is no like, I mean, I'm still kind of pulled around, you know, for sure. But more and more, I live like this is one output. You know what I mean? This is like, it's not just work, play, you know, tense, relax, you know. It's just kind of just like one effort to express myself artistically, socially, politically, and you know, cosmically, as was, you know what I mean, as you know, as art is, you know, art is your little tether to the universe, you know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We have a question from the audience.
Hi, hello. So I wanted to ask, how do you access, I guess, your source, right? You know how like whenever you're writing, you kind of get that feeling or whatever that is, intuition, X, Y, and Z. How do you guys access that? Is that sort of something that just comes to you and you just follow it? You feel me?
Yeah, I get it. So how do you find that source that gives you the energy to write? I think the vibrancy to write. Yeah.
Good answer that. I think it comes from different ways, but a lot of it definitely stems from, this is going to be a boring answer, but like again, when I said earlier, the struggle and then the work that I engage in. So and the work that I digest as well. You know, I always tell my students like to be, you know, rigorous, voracious readers. Always be reading, always be and pushing yourself too, right? Like, you know, I think it's the mark of a wise person to engage in an argument they don't necessarily accept. So I read my enemies, right? Just to be deeply tapped into what discourse and dialogue is happening historically, contemporarily. And then for me, the artist part, because that's more the cerebral, like maybe the artist more visceral. You know, I've always been a very emotional person. Like I used to get in a lot of trouble because of my anger. So a lot of it is now a lot, you already know what it is. So a lot of it now is channeled because like you know, I'm very sensitive to the world around me too, like seeing suffering and struggling. Like one of the pieces I said, I've died many times and I've seen like many atrocities like that. I feel that and I take it in. I always have as a child. I didn't know how to process it as a child. So it would manifest in violent ways or just like a rebel with no cause. But now I try to manifest that energy like when I'm feeling despair or sorrow or anger or any type of emotion and channel it. So it's emotional for sure, mixed with the cerebral of study and discipline, as well as engaging in struggle for me. And then I think the final like key is when we're talking about the source, like, you know, it can come from, he said something cosmic. It can come from many ways too. Like if you're like spiritual, like I think that's another way, guided by that, guided by the path you walk, the path you practice. And, you know, deep introspection and reflection is so powerful. And I think when you can do that, but also be immersed in community, that is the key, because it's important to understand yourself, but it's also important to do these things together. I think anything worth doing is done with others. I think Miriam Kaba said that, and I agree with that. And like the answer to me oftentimes is like the other. What are we doing with others? How are others shaping us? How do we invest into others? Because I think we have a culture, and I'll finish with this. We have a culture that not only rewards selfish, avaricious, and rapacious like type of tendencies. I want to break that on a human level. So like I reject that. Like I don't accept pay for nothing that I do generally. Like I just finished a documentary. I didn't accept pay because I believed in the cause. Every once in a while, we'll charge the colonizer because, you know, you're not going to do their work for free. But liberatory causes, I've always tried to immerse myself in that and like reject this idea of commodity exchanges and reject the idea of selfishness, individualism, and how can I practice that in my daily life? I reject these ideas ideologically. How do I reject them materially? And it starts with things like that. So I hope that answers the question.
And then we have another question from the audience.
Yeah, I would just add that, you know, sometimes, man, you know, you do well to try to operate out away from that feeling, to get to know how your craft works away from that energy, away from that juice, because what happens in that kind of what feels like flat is actually an opportunity to get, you know, a great kind of lucidity of craft, of seeing what is actually what's actually going on. You know, when kind of, you see, it's like, you know, sometimes we can label it, you know, we can label the vibe different ways, but you know, when kind of euphoria or catharsis becomes the main dance, it'll have you tunnel. It'll have you sticking close to a content, close to a style that keeps you there, that keeps you dancing with the vibe, right? But there's so much more your mind can do, and what the kind of what the meditation is, or what's then even healthy for you, is to learn how to cooperate with all aspects of your internal weather, to make all kind of like emotional aspects of yourself productive. This is then instruction that you can bring into, because people operate the same way. That's why people run around in their comfort zones and end up like, you know what I mean? Because it's just like, well, my best chance of feeling good is for me to be X, or me to be Y, or me to be Z. Instead of just like, okay, I can actually make all of, in a way, I can cooperate, not in a passive way or an inhibited way, but I can cooperate in all of reality that will actually put me in a position to transform it, right? And not have to just, and not just conform. So actually, like, and I'm like, literally, it sounds like mumbo jumbo. Yeah, but it's literal experience. My craft literally, and you know, it went back to the 2 hours. I stumbled onto it. It was the 2 hours, because I noticed that, like, it didn't matter. You don't feel the same for 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like, you could be going and it could be good. Like the very first day I did it, I was going, I wrote this poem that was really, I was like, oh, this is good. And then I looked down at the clock and only 15 minutes had passed. And I was like, okay, what we gonna do for another hour and 45? Now I had to, now I'm moving like dejected, because I'm just like, man, it's over. I don't even want to be doing this anymore. But learning, like, okay, how does my mind work, or how can I make my mind musical from this feeling of dejection? So I would say take that trip, you know, away from the perceived source, you know, and then back to what my comrade's saying, like, you know, it's all of the work really that you do before you pick up the pen is what you really lean on, you know, is and what is really expressing itself through your craft. It's really your practice. Like, so in a way, you don't even have to worry too much. If you're doing right by this human thing on the front end, on the back end of craft, everything takes care of itself, even when it feel like nothing is happening.
Yeah, that's deep. Yeah, you know, lots of snaps. All right, one more question. Well, not just one more, but another question.
Hi. So I've come to notice that I feel like a lot of young people now are very apathetic when it comes to politics. And like you were touching on, we live in such an individualistic society where people are more concerned over themselves than community. And so I was wondering, like, how would you say art and like poetry can help bring people together and bring that sense of community back, and not like just individualistic, and have people care about their politics and what's going on in their city? Because I find that a lot of people don't care. And especially with social media, you know, people are getting their information from there, and then we get confirmation bias, and a lot of people aren't educating themselves adequately. And so like, what would you say for, as a young person, how can we unite together and care about our city and our country?
A+ student right here. A+.
That's a brilliant question, and something that we should all ponder if we're doing this work. And I think the first thing is just action, and like finding what you can do with a couple people. And I'll give a couple concrete examples. So I know when I was in undergrad, and I went to Columbia, actually, I went to school down here, like we had some friends and some family members who lived in a complex, and they were trying to evict folks. So we threw a barbecue that day and they didn't go in there. And the idea sometimes is to show people they care. So when people are apathetic, I don't necessarily always blame it on a lack of interest or something, you know, to their intelligence, but it is because they have shaped the world that is not conducive for people to be engaged civically or politically. So that's the first, analysis is like this colonial situation. How can we address that? And it is about caring about folks. I live in Aurora now, actually. So we have like several mutual aid programs where we fix people's cars, we get people food, we find secure, safe housing, and like we do it collectively. We got different people in the group. We got lawyers, we got teachers, we got a food pantry executive, and like we just work collectively to solve problems. And what's really important, I think, is like showing people that there's alternative ways and that you care. And it starts in small ways because, to really build capacity, you need organization, and that doesn't happen overnight. So we can't fool ourselves that some of these larger problems that need to be solved by the state, that should be solved by the state, fall to the people. But in the meantime, very similar to the survival programs of the Panthers, I'll speak to, I think, what can we do to show people what community looks like? And like community is a verb to me, it's an action. So start really transforming the relations. And I'll give you another example, right? A lot of the folks who use the fridge are either like unhoused or, face food insecurity in a different way. And like, we have people who we call fridge aides who look at all the fridges and keep them stocked clean and things like that. And it's for two reasons. One, I teach a mutual aid class monthly to the folks, and then they gain the political analysis. They go out, do the work, and continue and struggle. But then they work with people who they would have never otherwise spoken to, who use the fridge. That's building a connection and changing social relationships legitimately, not just theoretically. So now they be like, yeah, I just told James yesterday. James said we need more cheese in the fridge and shit. So we having conversations now with and building legitimate community, not just living in proximity, like we just close to each other, but like we have a mutual existence and a mutual shared, I think, common goal. And when we can really materialize that, that's when I think you can make art and poetry more engaging. So like, and it's strategy too. Like if you are dealing with like youth, like real young youth, like middle schoolers, I try to tap into what they're already interested in, and I show them like the historical roots of poetry. Things need to be relevant, right? That's why one of my favorite poets is Langston Hughes, and he wasn't considered an academic poet for a long time. And the reason why is he did not use academic language. He was not one of these highbrow poets, and he did that purposely. He said, my people need to understand me. My people are uneducated. They have not received the education to understand pulchritudinous. They don't know what that is, right? So for me, I'm like, how can we make things relevant, engaging, and transformative? And those are the questions I ask before I make a poem. And then I'll answer your question too, because something made me think of, there's a good book by Lawrence Ferlinghetti called Poetry as an Insurgent Art. Poetry as an Insurgent Art. And if you need it afterwards, I'll give it to you again. But he says in this book, and he's writing revolutionary poetry and about revolutionary poetry. It's very meta. And he says, every piece of art should be an observation, a statement, an outcry. And when I start doing art now, I ask myself, is this going to be a statement? Is this going to be an outcry? Is this an observation? And that informs how I engage with the work too. So, if you want to galvanize young people, tap into what they're interested in. What are their interests? Like we got to be really, because like sometimes people just take and this is not like hating on nobody, but I've been part of organizations that be like trying to feed people newspapers, but like are uninterested in their day-to-day lives. How can we be interested in people's day-to-day lives? Because if I'm working 9 to 5 and I'm coming home to 3-4 kids and like we struggling day to day, I'm not trying to see that newspaper. I'm trying to get home. How can we tap into that day to day? Maybe, tell them about how do you organize a rent strike? Like be relevant to where you're at, right? Like, let's not try to organize, a food drive in somewhere where food's not the problem. It's like housing, right? So like just be really intentional with what you do. And, let's not just throw things at the wall. And poetry has its place, I think, almost anywhere. But how do you integrate it with the answer of the needs that you've addressed, the conditions you've addressed, and how do you make it relevant, engaging, and ultimately transformative? So that's what I would say.
And if I could just add, and then I'll come to you, Tongo. One of the things that I'm working on, and you work with what you have, is to do mutual aid here through the union that I work for, because I'm the steward. And to get money just to give directly to students, right? That's one thing. But the other thing is, because I was also on the bargaining team for my contract, was this proposal called the Community Colleges for the Common Good. And what we wanted to do was to offer wraparound services for students, like rural wraparound services, like housing, like childcare, what students need. And of course, the city blocked it, but we got some language just to do an assessment of what students need. And really, we're pushing for free higher education in the city colleges. It used to be free. Right. And but the one thing that I was thinking, and I was telling my union president, I'm like, you know what, we came up with this really great proposal, but we never asked the students what they wanted. And we didn't take it to the community how we were supposed to. So I started going to the high schools that we were supposed to partner with. But it should be, like he was saying, a cooperative thing, not Jesus and Tony Johnson thinking, oh, this is a great idea. Let's ask the students what they want, right? Let's not assume that what they need. Well, I'm assuming everybody needs money. That's an easy one. But what is it that they care about that we can collaborate on together? But I think it's possible. This is a community college founded by the great Harold Washington. And I think we've lost a lot of our mission, unfortunately, through the decades. We got to bring it back, So Tongo, if you want to bring it back to a happy vibe. So I forgot the original question, but it was so brilliant. Do you remember it?
Yeah, I remember. I really wouldn't add too much to what Nick was saying. I just or to put happy news in, if one, like, art is very, very effective. I've asked, kind of revolutionaries from that generation who were there during that kind of like 60s climax or heightening, what politicized them. And more than a few have said, I heard a poem. And it kind of like, a poem can, kind of wake someone up in a way that can instantly, or is almost an invitation to join the revolutionary process that sometimes the speech can't do. But I would check out Amilcar Cabral's Unity and Struggle. It's highly instructive for organizing. I think one thing, Amilcar Cabral, he took like 5 people and turned it into like a people's army who kicked the Portuguese out of Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde. And one thing, one of the tenets was just basically to know who you talking to and to do your diligence. Amilcar Cabral will get all the way down into your family history. Like, what's the what are those bloodlines over there about these people I'm about to talk to? Just getting to know as thoroughly as possible who you trying to talk to, to figure out the right conversation, or there's a speaking of meditation, right? There's this anecdote about Ho Chi Minh, where they were getting ready to kick the French out of Vietnam, and they would organize village after village after village, even like non-militarily, just getting people politicized. And one of the cats comes back to Ho Chi Minh. He's like, man, I can't organize that village, man. They too religious over there. All they want to do is meditate all day long. And Ho Chi Minh kind of famously said, man, you better learn how to meditate and take your ass over there. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, the kind of, it's the revolutionary's fault if it don't work. You know what I mean? It's your responsibility. And I think another groovy thing to keep in mind when you try to figure out how you're gonna come at folks is come from Cabral too. Tell no lies, claim no easy victories. Don't come in putting something on thick, but it's, you got to keep everything in perspective and letting folks know what you're doing. Like, oh no, don't just blindly join. Like, this is why we doing this. Not because, oh, this little thing right here is the new day. You know what I mean? No, this is not the new day. But this is why we're doing it. Just keep it, keep it realer and consistency. All relationships is really just based on that. You don't even actually have to be like, the more time you put in with people, the more you're around people, actually, the less competent you have to be. Like, it's the consistency. And even just like, honestly, like, man, we can figure this out together, but we have to figure it out. You know what I mean? These are a few things to keep in mind.
Excellent. Thank you.
But I should say though, like, this is the movement question. You know what I mean? Like, this is a working question. So like, whatever you figure out, find me online and let me know what you come up with. You know what I mean? Because this is like a perpetual task that, that I don't think anybody has got the equation down yet.
No, I know. And right now, like, I'm so sorry. We're like actually at time. But hey, Lynn, isn't there something coming on at 2 o'clock right now or no? Can we ask one more question? All right. Listen, I just want to say thank you. And then on a positive note, and just gratitude for Mija for bringing donuts, and my husband finally brought some more food and some more sweets. And really, Nick and Tongo, this has been such an amazing event. Hope to continue the conversation, and just really, really thank you from the bottom of my heart. But here you go.
That was a good transition into my question. I was going to ask you, like, what organization do you represent or do you work for right now? And like, how can people volunteer in San Francisco? Like, how can people from Chicago come out there and hop on board with, and just serve? And you too, I'm gonna chop it up with you too.
Very good. Well, the good news is we 2 for 1. We both in an organization called the Black Alliance for Peace. So tap in with that.
The Black Alliance for Peace, yep. Yeah. Gang. So we do. There's the national and there's actually a Chicago chapter too. Black Alliance for Peace, BAP, just put in BAP and then the national should come up, and then BAP Chicago or BAP_Chicago. Were you?
Yeah.
You'll find me now. They'd be up there spreading propaganda.
I spelled it wrong, but
Oh no, we good. Yeah.
I mean, creative writing students, why not have something here, and really connect that.
Yeah.
I don't know, but let's bring it back. I mean, we got the technology for it. We could bring people like we did. I mean, this has been beautiful, Tongo, and I can't tell you how excited I'm just to start crying, start up again. But listen, let's show them some Harold Washington love. This is your home anytime. Thank you, Tongo. Thank you, Nick. Thank you. It's beautiful, beautiful. And thank you, people in Zoom. We got about 10 people in Zoom. We had about 40 people come and go, but it was a thing of beauty. Anyway, thank you for your wisdom, Tongo. I didn't get to hear my favorite poem, but I replay it on YouTube quite a bit. And I hope you all have a blessed week. And I'm going to urge everybody to vote. I know that people may not think it's a political act, but it's a revolutionary act in Chicago. So get out there, get your friends to vote. Thank you.
All right, much love, y'all.
Thank you, Tongo. This is brilliant. All right. Yeah, we didn't say bye to Tongo.
Peace, comrade. He's
Oh,
gone.
he
That's
left.
it.
Sorry about that. I know.